So The Walking Dead finished airing its final season towards the end of 2022, and there are several spin-offs that are either in the works or on the way. And I thought that being a fan of the show in its earlier seasons, I thought I'd go back and revisit it, and depending on how well I do with the show, if I'm going to continue to watch it all the way to up to its final season. So at least with this video, I'm going to cover just season 1 to 3. My wife and I went back and watched up to season 3, and we're now on season 4. So I just wanted to talk about season 1 to 3, going back and revisiting that. Because as far as The Walking Dead goes, I was a fan from the very beginning. I watched this on AMC weekly, like when they showed one episode a week. And at least with binging it, comparing to watching it weekly as it's airing, it is a little bit different on how the feel of at least season 2 and 3 were concerned. So, I mean, my general thoughts of the show, at least in the first couple seasons, are relatively the same. It definitely has some flaws and such. My thoughts, at least with the show, are still relatively the same. I mean, it's still a solid show in its, beginning run. There are a lot of like politics and behind the scenes stuff that happened because with the first season, it was only 6 episodes and it was run by Frank Darabont, and he was behind like Shawshank Redemption, The Mist, and a lot of actors from The Mist were in the first season of The Walking Dead, and AMC basically had fired him right in the beginning of the second season, which really sucks because that, at least to me, leaves a big like what if question mark over the whole series. That how was it going to be if Frank Darabont had continued running the show? But since that is out of the question, just grading it and reviewing it just based on its merits now, I mean, at least up to this point in the series, rewatching it, season 1 is still my favorite. It has a perfect pace. The first episode, Days Gone By, is like, to me, I think it's still one of the best like pilot episodes of a TV show ever. I mean, it hooks you right away. And most of the rest of the first season is like, because it's only 6 episodes, it doesn't drag its feet whatsoever. And I think because of that, the show got more episodes, the following seasons, and from there on, the rest of the series. And because of that, I think that's why the show drags its feet a lot. But at least with season 1, it does not waste any time. It tells what it needs to tell, and everything you need to know. And to me, like, that was the perfect setup for the beginning of the show. And then once, it gained its huge popularity from season 1 and then going into season 2 and things happening behind the scenes and people getting fired, it definitely, had that effect on season 2, because at least with season 2, you had a lot of episodes that either felt like filler or just not a whole lot happens. And at least to me, like, watching the show on a weekly basis when season 2 was airing, I definitely felt this way. Going back and binging it, it's not nearly as bad, and it's not nearly as aggravating, I would say, because there are certain aspects to the story where it's like you could say it's dragging its feet, but it's way more character developed, I would say. And like, it is focusing more just on the character stories rather than, them trying to survive or walkers or whatever. And like, to me, in season 2, there's the episode Chupacabra, which is basically just Daryl just falling down a hill like 8 times and then him almost dying like 3 times. And yeah, to me, it's like that was the equivalent of being a filler episode. But other than that, like, season 2, there's a lot to enjoy in season 2. And yeah, for season 2, like, my favorite episodes are probably the one Pretty Much Dead Already, where it's one of those episodes where you're not really, you think nothing's happening, and then it has this big, huge thing that happens. And to anyone who's never seen the series, this was like such a big turning point in the series. There's a thing that happens at the end of the episode where when this first aired, people's jaws were on the floor, and like mine included, because it's weird. It's one of those things where you're like, you expect to see this coming, but yet no one did. And like, that's a great episode. Judge, Jury, and Executioner is a good one. Better Angels, the character of Rick and Shane, throughout up to the series to this point, there's an affair involved, and you're just waiting for this big confrontation between Shane and Rick. And in the episode Better Angels is where that finally comes to terms, and that's like one of my favorite moments of the series, where they finally, like, Rick gets in his head that Shane is just like trying to kill him, and he realizes that he faked this story with this one guy that they held captive, that he got free, and then he attacks Shane, and Shane lures Rick all the way out into this field where no one else is around so he can kill him. And then Rick is like, finally, like, so this is where you plan to kill me. And that confrontation is just amazing. And yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes. Beside the Dying Fire is a good finale. It's just a good, like, everyone beside the Dying Fire, everyone was like, finally, we're getting off the farm. This was a big relief for a lot of people. But I mean, I like the farm in some aspects. I'm shocked they survived on the farm as long as they did, with how many, that whole season was basically on the farm. Despite all of the flaws of season 2, like, of it dragging its feet, you're like, all right, let's get on with the show. Come on, what are we doing? There are a lot of great moments. A lot of the classic moments from the series are in season 2. And, I think if season 2 had only like 6 episodes, I mean, it could have worked, but I don't think it would have been as effective, because there was a lot of story that they, even though there was a lot of filler in season 2, you got to know a lot of the characters a lot more. So those like little details of characters, I don't know if it would have worked nearly as well or been as effective. And certain characters, like, the beginning of Maggie and Glenn's relationship, or, getting to know Herschel as a person and all that entails. And I don't know if all that would have been as effective. And, Herschel and, Maggie and Glenn, it's like, it felt like that probably would have sidelined a lot of stuff, more of the more important plot lines to get things out in the open, and, at least get the action going, getting them off the farm. But yeah, season 2 is very controversial among a lot of fans of The Walking Dead. Some people think season 2 is probably the worst. I don't necessarily think that. I would say it's hard to pinpoint what would be the worst season. I feel like as Kelly and I watch this series on more, I feel like some of the later seasons we're gonna feel are the worst seasons. But yeah, season 2, I mean, you had characters like Shane that kept it so enticing. Shane was just, you knew he had good intentions at certain aspects, but he couldn't help but let his rage and crazy emotions take over him. And that was, like, to me, that was his downfall. Like, he just let his emotions take over. He wouldn't really think clearly. And, and Shane is not in, the rest of the series. And, like, John Bernthal, who plays Shane, like, did an amazing job playing as Shane. And so there's certain things that, like, going onward where it's like, especially when I was watching season 3, it's like there seems like a big void there for characters like Shane, even though you're like, I couldn't imagine him being in the series anymore after that. But it did feel like there was like a big void, especially when starting season 3 and like, oh, Shane's not there, he's gone. So But yeah, like season 1 is great. I would say season 2 is good overall. It's not bad to me, but and then going into season 3, I like to call season 3 the action movie season of The Walking Dead, because it's a big jump in time between the end of season 2 to season 3. It's like season 2, they were off the farm. They don't know what the road, holds for them ahead. And then you get to season 3 and it seems like they know their stuff. Like everyone knows how to kill walkers really well now, and scavenging supplies, and everyone can kind of handle themselves when it comes to walkers. So it's like it was just a big jump between some people knew how to kill them, some people just knew how to avoid them, and then going to the beginning of season 3 where it's like everyone knew how to kill a walker, no problem. So to me, my biggest flaw with season 3 was they kind of sidelined the walkers, and I feel like a lot of people would probably say that for the show going forward as well, where it was more about the different groups, the humans versus humans, and walkers were kind of the thing in between that. But at least in this season, it was just like everyone knew how to take out a walker like in like 2 seconds, and they weren't any real threat to anyone. I mean, besides like the first episode, like Herschel gets bit on the leg by a walker and they amputate his leg so he doesn't get, the infection doesn't spread and he doesn't die. And then like, other than that, it's like every major thing that happens to characters or the group, it's always because of humans. It's never because they just ran into a horde of walkers. And yeah, to me, like that was a huge flaw of season 3. And while I still very much enjoyed season 3, it just felt like I was watching a big action movie between just two, major sides. You had the governor who was introduced in season 3 and his town of Woodbury, and then Rick and the group, they end up finding the prison and kind of establishing that as their safe haven. And then it's just this kind of war, but trying to maintain peace between both sides. And then there's the walkers in between them. But the walkers were never really a threat. Like someone could have just like grabbed a walker and then threw him up against a brick wall, and then somehow it would have impaled them. And I don't know, that's to me where I was like, it is The Walking Dead. So to me, it's like, yes, human beings are a huge threat, but I really got no threat from the walkers on season 3. And at least with my wife and I watching season 4, we're at the very beginning, like I already immediately am like, okay, walkers are a threat again. Like it actually feels like a zombie show. It feels like a zombie movie, like I'm watching Dawn of the Dead or Night of the Living Dead, where people are afraid of the walkers. They're, other humans are terrifying as well, but season 3 like really lost that with, like walkers were just so sidelined in season 3. But season 3 had a handful of great episodes too. I mean, like The Killer Within was a great episode. That was where you had 2 major character deaths, and this is one that stands out amongst the series as like a fan favorite, or one of the best episodes. I really like the episode Clear because you get to see Morgan again. Season 3 is pretty well paced up until the end of season 3. I feel like season 3 ends on a big like anticlimactic note, and especially when you were watching this series from on a weekly basis, like I was so stoked for the last episode of the season. I was like, all right, we're gonna get the governor and Woodbury are gonna attack the prison, and it's gonna be a big battle, and someone's gonna the governor's probably gonna die or whatever, and we're gonna have a wrap up to the storyline. And it doesn't really wrap up there. The governor, him and Woodbury attack the prison. Everyone at the prison fends off the prison, and then they end up fleeing. Governor loses his mind and kills like all his soldiers, and then he just drives off, and we don't know what happens to him. And then, you know, Andrea is held captive, and then Milton ends up turning into a walker from getting stabbed, and then Andrea ends up getting bit, and, you know, Andrea ends her own life. And I was glad of that, though. I couldn't stand Andrea through this whole series. Not the actress herself. Laurie Holden is actually a good actress, but I could not stand the character of Laurie in the show. Not Laurie, I'm sorry. The actress's name is Laurie, but the character of Andrea in the show, I could not stand her character, and every second, it's just one of the worst characters of that series. Like, the way she carried herself and just the writing for her is like, she was just so terrible. But yeah, the way season 3 wraps up, it ends on such a dull ending, because it's just like people of Woodbury are like kind of lost. They're like, where's our leader? And, you know, Rick ends up taking everyone in from Woodbury, you know, and then that's about it. You know, it just ends on a big like lull, and you're like, all right, I guess we have this bigger group now. And then, I don't know, it just ends like pretty sour. But yeah, for what you think would be like a big explosive season finale, it doesn't end that way. It starts that way and then ends on a real sour note. But I mean, this is just me spitballing most of my thoughts on the series so far, at least season 1 to 3. So I'm sure there's a lot I'm missing here, but these are just random thoughts I'm just like throwing, word vomiting out at you all. But I mean, so far, me and my wife are really enjoying the series again, and being able to binge it, it definitely is a different story compared to, you know, looking forward to Sundays and then it, you know, showing just the one episode, because you're having all these big expectations of one episode, you know, at the end of the week, that it can really kill the enjoyment of a show. And I think that, you know, weekly episodes of a show are cool, but it has ruined us a lot, especially with binging, because, you know, we're getting a whole season that's released by a certain time that we can watch it at our own pace. So we don't have the expectations of sitting down in front of the TV and be like, all right, it's 9 p.m., let's watch The Walking Dead. And then we're expecting the greatest episode ever. And then we get just kind of like a okay episode. And even just an okay episode really ruins our enjoyment of that. So I think, yeah, binging it is a whole different story comparing to watching it weekly. And so a lot of my criticisms of the show when watching it weekly have kind of fallen by the wayside now when kind of binging it, because I'm not holding on to those one episode at a time thoughts. It's kind of just like, let's keep moving forward. So yeah, to me, it's like, I still do have some major criticisms of the show, but my enjoyment of the show has gone up a lot more, being able to just watch episodes at my own pace. So yeah, I thought that because the show had ended, the main show has ended at the end of 2022, and then you have these several spin-off shows in the works, you know, going back and just kind of rewatching it, and then kind of hopefully sticking with it, because I stopped watching this show, I think like mid-season 7. There was a major character death that happens in the beginning of season 7 that really ruined people's wanting to watch the show. A lot of people tuned out right when that happened. For me, I understand that, but I was still into it. But about halfway through mid-season 7, I was like, this sucks, like nothing's happening. This is like boring. And then I just never went back to it. So hopefully this time around, I'll get up to that point and I'll keep going. And then, you know, I'll let you all know my thoughts. But I'm gonna wrap it up here for at least season 1 to 3 of The Walking Dead. And anyone who has any thoughts, you know, you can leave them in the comments below, whether you think my thoughts are kind of ridiculous, or, you know, if you agree with them, or what you think about the series in general. Just let me know. And if you did enjoy this video, give me a thumbs up. And other than that, I'm going to wrap it up there. I will see you all in a future video, and thank you for watching. Bye.